welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you happen to listen, because after all, it is your podcast. Today is going to be a work in progress show. And for those who aren't aware, a work in progress show is what happens when we have a creator come on the show who has a project about to come on Kickstarter, and they're coming on here to tell us all about the project, tell us all about the campaign, tell us a little bit about themselves, and it's all about meeting somebody new and finding out a little bit more about them. So joining me today from Netherhavyn Games is Price Johnston. So hello, Price.
Hello there.
How are you?
So happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. We've already spent 20 minutes talking about absolutely nothing.
It's what we
educating you about Scottish history or Scottish history and lack of culture and stuff like that.
Well, you can tell by my last name that I am Scottish. You know, the Johnstone clan. Yes. So
it's that accent.
Yeah. I don't have it. I'll try to do my best. Mel Gibson.
I would do that. Yeah. Best Scottish Mel Gibson, good at accent.
Aye.
Exactly. I love you. I want to marry you. It's like, Mel, stop it. Right now. You should have just went, all right, mate, I'm over here. I'm just about to take out all these English people. If you could just give us a second, that'd be fine. Thanks. Anyway.
I love it. Oh, gosh.
Listen, you asked to be on the show.
I'm
just saying, this wasn't me kind of like going, oh, Netherhavyn Games. They started following us on Twitter. We'll have a look at they're doing a project. Let's give them a message and see what they're up to, kind of thing. It was never that. For people who haven't listened to the show before, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is because we fundamentally believe that there quite simply isn't enough podcasts out there about board games. In fact, there's only about 2.5 of us in Scotland that are doing podcasts. There's ourselves, there's the fantastic Unlucky Frog Gaming, there's also the First Player Token, but they said they occasionally are doing kind of board game stuff. But we've spoken to them now, so they're kind of like our buddies and our pals, so go and have a listen to them as well. And the second reason that we do this is because, as we've said, we like to speak to people like Price, who have, they're taking their, I guess what they would call in the X Factor, their journey down the cardboard road. So we want to find out a little bit more about themselves. So we're going to find out a little bit more about their past, a little bit more about what they're going to be doing in the present, and also talking about the struggles of war in the future. So again, Price, thank you for coming on and putting up with the nonsense so far. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your history in the hobby? How you got involved in the land of kind of, I guess, pressed and printed trees.
Right. Okay. Well, it started a long time ago. Now, I was. It's
ASMR voice.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you about my cardboard.
All right. It rubs the lotion on
No,
its body.
don't do that.
Okay, I won't go there. All right.
Get the whole again.
Okay. Actually, I got into gaming when I was a little kid. I was a single kid for a long time until I had a sister when I was about 9. Mm-hmm. But I played a lot of games by myself when I was younger. And I developed this kind of wargaming element game. I don't even know how you describe it, but basically it's little plastic army men that you'd buy by the bag. Mm-hmm. And then you use string and pennies and rubber bands to kind of like track their skills and whether or not they had enough hit points. And you can see that I had this Dungeons and Dragons influence going from the get-go too. And so I used to play out in the fields with just these hundreds of army men, and that was my thing. That was my jam. And I really realized at a young age that what I was doing was just making games all along. I'm convinced, 10,000 years from now, the aliens are going to land. They're going to have like Elon Musk's Tesla with them. They're going to like set down in this field and start digging. They're going to be, what is this? It's a whole bunch of petrified rubber bands and little army men set up with pennies next to them to track things as they flip over. And I don't know. So,
did you give them names? Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, that was the thing. I did. Yeah, I like the guy that held his rifle above his head with both hands, and he looked like he was going to stab somebody sideways in some sort of like Pilates movement or something. And I try to give them names and see if they would live from battle to battle and that kind of thing. And you can actually see that, in what I've created now. So it's kind of funny when you go look back. That's how I got started in it, was playing with army men and then trying to develop a system to track, the war.
When when your sister came along, when your sister was growing up, and there's obviously the 9-year kind of age gap, did you two kind of end up kind of playing any games together? Was that when, the parental units kind of brought out Monopoly and said, here's something that we can all sit around together as a family and kind of play? Is that kind of what happened?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it was board game night as a family, and we'd play, myriad of different types of games, everything from card games to your Monopoly or the farming game. That was another one that was big in our family. You had little fields and cows, and you try to make enough money that you could buy more fields and cows. Yeah. So, yeah, did a lot of that.
Did you did you crush her at every single game that you played?
No, and the funny thing is, this is absolutely hilarious. I have a little 8-year-old daughter right now, and I had this game called Hi Ho Cheerio, and it's this little game where you just flick a spinner and you decide whether or not it tells you whether or not you can take a certain number of cherries off of your tree that you've got, or whether or not you have to put cherries back on your tree. Your goal is to get all the cherries that you have off of your tree. And my sister just used to crush me at that game. And it was based on, fate. And I was like, well, maybe my luck has changed. And I got that game and for my daughter, and I lost 21 times in a row. 21 times in a row. We started counting. Like, how do you lose a game built on fate 21 times in a row? But I did. So
you got just rubbish fingers or something.
I'm
just a bad
problems with spinners, I guess. I don't know.
It could be a whole dexterity thing. I mean, it could be just a dexterity finger type thing. You need to maybe get flick 'em up. Get something like get your hand on Catacombs. They're all dexterity games. You need to build up these. You need a training montage of you doing various different things, kind of building up these finger muscles before you go back, and you're like, right, SmackDown's on now, bring out that, and then you just the triumph thing. But
just get some weights for him.
Yeah,
not right now. I'm in my cycle. I got to get the rest of this done here.
Exactly.
45 more reps to go.
151, 152, 153, 154. Honey, not in the car. 155. Yeah. I can't break my sweat. I'm breaking in a sweat now.
People look down my pointer fingers. Looks like a huge hot dog or something. And like, hey, what did happen to you? I'd just been working out. It's all set.
You kind of wearing really tight gloves to show them off.
Yeah. It'd be good.
Look at these bad boys.
Yeah.
Bringing out the pythons are coming out tonight. Oh dear, it's like, and then you're looking for people that you can give directions to, like tourists, so you can point them down.
Did you see that guy's finger, man?
Can you tell me how to get to the place where they used to do Mork and Mindy? Oh, that's Boulder.
It's over there.
That's over there. So, you. Wow, that's a tangent. So you you get as normal, and it's like almost turning into something that you can ride up the road. So you obviously at some point you're continuing to grow up, and did you start to move into kind of the other games? Did you get into kind of miniature games? Did you stay with the kind of the warring side? Because you were, I mean, the whole kind of, I guess the kind of war theme, World War One, World War Two, especially with soldiers and miniatures, has never really kind of gone away. It's always been something that's kind of been present. So did you stay within that? Did you stay within that circle, or did you do what a lot of people did, and you kind of left the kind of the cardboard and miniatures behind and did kind of like other things instead?
I did. I left it behind for a while, and I went into more of the fantasy type realm.
Yeah.
And tabletop role-playing games. BattleTech and Car Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jackson's Car Wars and Dungeons and Dragons, of course. And really got into that for a while. And then Magic, of course. I think everybody goes through some sort of Magic phase, which is great because there's so much to that game. But I guess I always had it left boiling within me to just keep going on war games. And so every time I played, I would just, man, I got to get back into this. And, Kickstarter, I think, actually gave me a new kind of out to see new things that I would never see, at the local store or whatnot. And then that was something that really inspired me when I looked at that, and said, hey, I still have this board game left in me. I think I can push this out here. Yeah.
So, I mean, Kickstarter's only reached its kind of, I guess its popularity within the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So, did life go in a different direction for you? Did you kind of leave? You mentioned obviously you were doing a bit of Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. Have you, since you got back into Kickstarter, or have you started kind of looking at that, and have you gotten involved in kind of collecting games themselves? Are you become a much more kind of active, avid kind of player within the hobby then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have some favorites, and we commonly get together, friends get together on Friday or Saturday night, and we'd play, the Friendship Ender, Battlestar Galactica, the board game.
Yeah, so, I heard friends of the show, Board Games in Bed, they constantly talk about how much they love Battlestar Galactica. Do you play it with the expansions, or do you just play the vanilla game?
Sometimes with the expansions, but the vanilla game is good enough for, tearing those that you love apart around you. So you don't really need to add anything else to that. You could just crush your friends with it. So I literally had 2 friends it was just heated, and they just went at it, and one of them stormed out of the house, and it was, wow. Like I just sat back and I was like, wow. That's game design right there. I mean, you can't beat it, right?
You're not a proper game designer until you make somebody cry.
Right.
I mean, we have a thing at the local club, which is we pretend it's kind of like Time of Death, and it's like time the table was flipped, and it's when you can tell somebody's actually really ready. They've got that vein on the side of their foreheads, kind of pumped up a little bit, and you can see the rage behind the eyes, and they've obviously just drawn a set of cards which could probably have just spelt out the letters "you're gonna lose" kind of thing, and you see them just about to reach underneath and go, right, that's it. And it's kind of like, we call it just when somebody's gonna tap out and kind of like go away. I've heard that Battlestar Galactica, I guess like any of these games, if you get people that are really, really into it, I can imagine it being kind of totally heated. Do you own all the expansions for it as well? Do you have?
I do. I actually have the Pegasus expansion in Daybreak, and I can't think of the other one off the bat, but yeah, I have the expansions for it. It's just it's a religion in our house, Battlestar Galactica in general, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you compare? Do you compare it well to the TV show? Do you consider it's better than the TV show?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that TV show was one of my. If you're stranded on a desert island, you only get 2 TV shows that you get to bring with you. That'd probably be one right there. Like, the remake, I guess. I mean, not that I don't like the nostalgia of the first one, but the remake I really enjoy.
What did you think of the way it ended, though? As a quick aside.
I am still not sold on it. Yeah, I thought it was kind of a cop out a little bit.
I just sounded like I've opened an old wound. It's kind of like I was.
Well, I was gonna say something, but then I was like, oh no, maybe I shouldn't. Spoiler. I mean, it's been only been out for how long? But
10. I think somebody said it's been 10 years since like the season actually finished. So, basically. It's kind of like Lost, isn't it? They're all dead.
Yeah.
It was all a dream. It's like, it was all in the past kind of thing. It's like, it's like when you get really, really good writing and they say, well, we can continue this until it goes stale, or we can keep it, or we can just finish it off in an almighty swoop and then just like run away with all the syndication money we've no doubt made in the DVD sales and
exactly
everything like that. So everything's kind of like we've totally kind of cashed in. Is there anything else that you guys kind of religiously get to the table as well?
I play the Heroes of Normandy a lot.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I like that. Jan and Klim, I think, is the designers on that one.
Yeah.
From Devil Pig, and that game is great because even my daughter can understand that. At 8, and how you move, the little cardboard elements, which are beautiful, absolutely, and thick, and gamers, we love really high quality cardboard. It's just what we revere. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of that, and especially with this expansion that they had, the Shadows of Normandy, where they kind of take the whole Nazi occult thing and throw it into it, and Cthulhu. That's just a great mix of absolutely crazy things that you would never think would be put together, but I love it.
I mean, when you were, have you been picking up stuff regularly on Kickstarter as well? Because you mentioned, obviously, Kickstarter's kind of opened your eyes to a few different experiences. Is there stuff that you've picked up on Kickstarter as well that you've like went, oh, yeah, this is really, really lovely? Yeah,
there's a couple games coming out that I'm just really excited about, and I backed as soon as I saw them. Yeah. One of them, Joan of Arc, Time of Legend.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And another one was the U-Boot.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That was the one that had the massive model, was it, of the actual U-Boat itself. And it actually says, don't worry, guys, you're not going to get it in a 6-foot-long box. You can actually take this thing apart and you can pack it away. I think they actually put that on the front panel of the Kickstarter page to say, guys, it's going to be a big boat, but it seems to be it's like a cross between kind of like a worker placement and a kind of a role assignment kind of game. Like I think it's like people were talking something along the lines of like Captain Sonar, where people get kind of different roles within the game, except rather than you all sitting around with like a kind of a whiteboard, you're actually moving people about through the structure. So it looked really, 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 really kind of cool. Do you find that you have a tendency to back more on Kickstarter than look for traditional retail games nowadays?
Well, I think retail is a challenge. It's so easy to get on Amazon or get on another, online retailer and browse through things. But there's something to be said about getting to the stores and holding that box in your hand and the heft to it. There's a lot of cardboard in here I get to punch out, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And do you think, I don't know, would you think that something like U-Boat would even get normally published? It kind of needed that Kickstarter interest for it to get developed. Because I see the thing with Kickstarter is you do get a lot of people being inventive with how they're putting games together. And I think the danger with sometimes can be in a traditional published model, especially I've seen it in the video games industry, is that you got a tendency to play it safe and make sure you kind of play it by the numbers, because you don't want to rock the boat too much,
right,
in case it scares people away. Though I have seen board games seem to do quite well though with slightly unusual IPs becoming kind of very popular, like your Codenames, for instance. That seems to be available in kind of lots of different places, so it's quite cool. What makes someone like yourself, who kind of gets back really seriously into the hobby and then say, right, actually I am going to go ahead and start making stuff? I mean, you obviously you talked about, I mean, sounds like the genesis of this is back, in 19 Canteen or whenever it was, and it's kind of grown up with you. So did your designer roots, did you keep with your designer roots? Did you continue to kind of dabble? Did you continue to play around? Were you always kind of making up little additional kind of extensions or expansions on your own games over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I kept going with it, and then I moved into the logical progression for every game designer into theater, which I don't know how that happened, but it was just a choice, and that happened, and I had a quite a career there, and moved into kind of the design side of theater, and with that live performance element, that background kind of helped me with all of the graphic design portion that I needed to kind of really understand layout and what I needed to do with the composition and put everything together. So from singing to actually putting things onto a paper.
Listen, I've heard it's a natural kind of progression. I know for a fact that John Gilmore himself, he's a fantastic bass baritone. That Eric Lang, used to be part of a barbershop quartet.
There you go.
I've even heard the guys at Wizards of the Coast will often break into an entire chorus of Tonight from West Side Story at the drop of a hat. So I think it's only natural that
yeah.
You go from wooden actors to cardboard players. I mean, it's just the way it is, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say it's normal. That's great. My ego feels so much better now, less bruised.
That's it. Well, especially if you can get in contact with Eric and say, do you fancy a little sing song now and again, kind of thing. But you've kind of you've played around, you've brought games to the drawing board, you've mucked around with rules and pieces and components, and then Of War and Men has appeared on the horizon. So I mean, how long? Of War and Men it's a card game.
Yep.
It's a tactical card game based around World War II.
Yep.
And when did you first kind of have the idea for the game?
A little over 10 years ago. I
really
sat down and started working on kind of a combat system, which is not the combat system that is in the game now. At one point, I realized I just started playing it, and the numbers that I was playing with, they just started getting really big, and I was like, people don't want to subtract 10,000 from 275,000 and add this and that, and it just was, that is a lot of hit points. So I had to go back.
Playing Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that.
Yeah, it was literally Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, it was too big. I was like, I need to make this epic, but epic doesn't necessarily mean, well, unless it's a salary or something, multiple zeros at the end. But that doesn't work for making something work on the tabletop. So, but about 10 years ago, or a little over that, I started putting my ideas, down on paper and really getting into kind of doing some math on it, and then just back and forth and just working on it throughout the years. And then it wasn't until about 3 years ago when I was at a point where I knew I wanted to make this more of a lifestyle rather than just a hobby. And I said to myself, yeah, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You just, what better time than now? So I went for it.
Is it difficult to stay with an idea through the kind of the ups and downs? Do you have to be quite not set in your ways, but you have to do a lot? Do you have to persevere a lot when you know that something's going to work, but you just have to kind of stick with it?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the game's gone through as you said, kind of a lot of kind of iterations.
I think a lot of designers will tell you, and from what I've heard as well, them say is that you find a way to let your subconscious help you, meaning you can take your ideas and you put them on shelf, and then you come back to them later on, and then you find out, oh yeah, that is absolute crap. And you're like, okay, redo. So you come back and you find a way to kind of rework things. But I think that absence actually helps you look at it more objectively. So I found that my progression, though I wanted it to be faster, I'm sure in one part of my brain, has left with a more solid product, in the end. I think that you have to step away a little bit and reevaluate, self-evaluate what's going on.
And at the same time, do you store kind of any little kind of mechanics or ideas that you think, well, actually, maybe it's not suitable for this game, but it could definitely be kind of suitable for other games? Have you got like a notebook of kind of ditch mechanics that you kind of keep an eye on just in case you can bring it back in a later date?
Yeah, and I do, and I keep it around me as much as possible. So, it'll be like 2:30 in the morning and I'll be sleeping and something in my brain will just say, hey, you should try that. And I'll flick the light on and my wife will be backhand me like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I gotta write this down or I'm gonna forget it, and then go back to sleep.
And of course what happens is you go straight back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then she's up until 5:30 in the morning. And then you've got that awkward thing at breakfast. And it's like,
but I have that, yeah.
Honey, you okay? Do I look okay?
You and your damn notebook. Yeah.
Does 3 hours sleep look okay? I'm gonna bury that notebook, Price. And if you don't watch out, I'm gonna bury you with it.
Exactly.
Let's actually talk about mechanics.
Okay.
The Of War and Men is going to be out towards the end of the month.
Yeah, on Kickstarter.
On the Kickstarter. But let's talk about the mechanics behind it. We've already hinted that it's a little bit of a card game. So how do you actually go ahead and play it?
All
This
right.
is going to be interesting because you'll have no visual cues. People are going to be listening, so you have to
Imagine.
You have to paint a picture in your mind.
In a world. Right.
Do that. A time of peace. It was a time of war. One deck of cards stood between humanity's downfall.
Get down. Yeah.
Was that Arnold Schwarzenegger?
It was my best, but I can't do dialects. Another reason I got out of the performance side altogether.
Oh my goodness!
I can sing, I can act, but doing dialects while acting and dancing, no, that is too much. My brain is not going to work there.
I can't read scripts. I don't know how to come in on time. Why are you here? I just joined the wrong queue. I thought this was the lunch queue. I didn't realize it was the lineup for acting class.
Yeah. What's a jazz square? Is that something you can eat? It
sounds
really spicy. Yeah.
I do a good impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger getting hurt. So,
right.
Anyway.
So the game, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
the reason we're here, 35 minutes in.
Yeah, there we go. So the game is a, World War II squad level strategy card game. And it's for 2 to 4 players. And it's based around some core mechanics of both map control of areas within the map and then hand management that you have. And I think what makes the game unique is the human element. And that's what I've wanted to push the whole time. I think in wargaming, it can get a little stale because you're playing with your units and they have, certain abilities, and you send them in. I'm going to sacrifice these units so these units can go do a flanking maneuver, and I'm going to win the day because these guys are all going to get slaughtered, but, that's okay. And then I'll still win because I captured that objective. And I thought to myself that is kind of missing the human element of war. So because this is a squad level game, every soldier has strengths and weaknesses. So if you have your private, he may have a strength that he's really fast, so he can run from squad to squad really easily. But he has a weakness that he happens to be pretty trigger happy. So when you issue a fire order to another guy in your team, he just doesn't listen, and he just shoots off his gun anyways.
Oh, no.
So you have this interaction between your soldiers that are there. One guy might be a comedian, another guy might be really stubborn, and he doesn't want to ever retreat or move away from the enemy. If he's engaged, he won't leave. And that human element is what makes the game a little bit different and fun, because you are constantly thinking, oh, wow, will this squad work, or is this squad just going to fight the whole time themselves before they actually even engage the enemy? And I think playing with that strength and weakness element, giving the players choice is important. Yeah, so there's that core. So you have your men. You lay out the game. You decide your fire teams and you lay them out, and then you take your hand of 7 cards for each player that's there, and you build the map in front of you as you start going. There are missions that you can complete, and for example, maybe one mission you have to take this hill, and that hill exists on the map, i.e. the tabletop. Mm-hmm. But in your hand, you also have cards that you could play. You can, put a forest next to it, or you could drop some barbed wire stream, or you could recon land that you don't know what it is because it's been placed face down, and you have to turn it face up. But you have to play that card. And on these cards that are there that you can execute any of these actions with, there is also another choice that you have to make. And that is, do I play the card to do one element, or there's something else on that card that you have to make a decision about? And I may need to use that card to drop smoke. Or that same card may give me the opportunity to rally my men.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so you have to make the choice. And sometimes you'll make a choice and it will affect your rounds far in the future. So you will run into problems if you decide to be super aggressive at the very beginning and things don't go right. You may have done yourself in for the later parts of the game. So it's really all about hand management choice and that human element of interaction with your men.
Yeah. So while you appear, you could go ahead and you could take the area very, very quickly. You might leave yourself open to some kind of counter attack a couple of rounds down, which means you're not able to defend against that, and you can kind of lose out that way. Is it about kind of just because you've got a good set of cards, it's about holding back, not necessarily playing everything in your hand that's available, but sometimes kind of keeping stuff in reserve in order to deal with any kind of other possible eventualities that come up?
Right, right. So you sometime in the playtesting that we've done, and we playtested at some of the at Gen Con out here in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And we had sessions go where it looked like one person was absolutely going to dominate the game, and at the very end, the other person had just played their cards right, and they held on to the right things, and then they executed some pretty amazing strategic moves, and all of a sudden the game just swung all the way across. So that unpredictability, built into the battlefield, we try to emulate through the game. So make it kind of fun.
Do you bring in kind of random elements into the game as well? Is there like a draw pile which has an effect that has an effect outside what the players can do, adds a part of kind of like randomness to what's happening on the battlefield as well?
Right. You do. You can draw. There is a draw pile, so you're consistently rebuilding your hands. Mm-hmm. Within the game, there is everything from artillery drift. So if you try to shoot artillery into one point on the map, which is cards that you've built, right, that'll change every time you play.
Yeah.
But the wind may blow, and if the wind blows, there's a good chance that it's going to blow, one of four directions. And then maybe it'll stay put for a couple other percentile chance on the square that you wanted it to actually hit. So there's random elements that are at play there. Mm-hmm. There's random elements that are at play with your men, where they may be really good at taking fire, and they have a good discipline. But you have to consistently roll to see whether or not they're going to run or cower down and be suppressed by incoming machine gun fire. And it's all built around these three symbols, a red D4, a blue D8, and a green D6. Okay. And those are built on the cards, so they're pretty easy to kind of look at the symbol or color, right, and figure out what that roll is. And you flip the cards to emulate the roll of dice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the card flips, and the size of that deck, the main deck is about 192 cards, and you run through that deck as many times as you want, or as given to you by the mission, and that's the timer as you move through the game itself. So you're pushing that deck and your hand management control. So let's say you're trying to actually get through cycle cards. You want to actually try to make events that randomly happen where you have to flip a lot of cards to roll a lot of dice. So those dice rolls exist on every one of the cards that are in that deck. So they're part of the engine and part of the game.
When you started out designing the game, was it always a card game? Did you always have that in mind? Was there the huge, massive, big box kind of version that you had a solid board on there and potentially kind of character cards, potentially miniatures on there as well? Or has it always existed in your mind as a card game?
Well, I think that's a good question. When I look back, I think I've always thought it was a card game from the get-go, except for I saw these army men coming, the guy with the flamethrower, smoking the stogie, go in there. But no, I think it's always been a card game in my brain. I haven't really evolved it past that. There's something cool about being able to just throw it in your backpack, and take it with you wherever, making it more mobile than, say, the World of Warcraft board game, which is massive and fun, but massive, right? You just don't throw that in your backpack. And I like the kind of portability of the fact that the game, it has a lot of cards. It does. It has, 350 cards in the game, but it does have a portability to it where it's small enough that you could bring it around. And I like that element of it.
No, I've seen that quite recently with a couple of games. There was the Solitaire kind of war game a while ago called Sans Alias, or Sans Ali. And that was, you were building a pyramid to capture, and it was all based on cards. Quite recently, I've seen Grimslingers, friend of the show, Stephen Gibson, and Grimslingers is you're building your environment out of a deck of cards, so you have a grid of 3x3 cards, and then you're going through like almost like a story, and the turns of the story are based around kind of drawing cards, and it fits all nicely in kind of like a 4x6 kind of, I think it's slightly bigger than that, but a small box that, you're right, you can stick it in a bag and you can still have a good adventure. There's Legends of the Five Rings at the moment, which seems to be capturing a lot of people's imagination. And again, it's a card game. It's got counters on it, but you can stick that in a bag and you can carry it around with you. It's not kind of like try to play Mechs versus Minions or Twilight Imperium or something like that, where you're having to basically take a, you're really building up those. You're really building up those arms.
Yeah,
I'm doing Arm Week this week. What are you doing? I'm going to be playing Mechs versus Minions. I've seen recently the box for GKR Heavy Hitters, which came from Weta, and that thing it doesn't fit anywhere. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in shelves. It doesn't fit in bags. It doesn't fit on the back seat of cars. It doesn't fit on normal tables.
Honey, what's that semi out front? Oh, just back it in here. Yeah, it's all good.
I'm building an extension for the house. That's what it looks like. That, along with the stretch goal box, it's like I'm thinking, that's a summer house. That's not That's not a board game.
Wow.
But I mean, there's the other side of it in building the card game. You've also got the cost side of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the dice decisions, outcomes being on the cards, was that a cost decision, or was that something you factored in from the beginning, that you wanted people just to be able to kind of, I guess, resolve kind of dice moves without having to take out a set of D20s or whatever with them?
Yeah, it wasn't a cost decision at all. It was put on there because of the portability factor, I think. And the dice component of the game, you could play with a D4 and D6 and D8, get a whole bunch of them together and just roll every time. So if somebody really wanted that component, they could do that. I mean, it would throw off the mechanics of the timer, but I think that a lot of times with war games also, you can lose one little, cardboard chit, and that little chit is the one that you need to, actually, have this battle work, and you can't find it. And this is a little bit, you don't have that option here. It's just cards.
Okay.
So,
if you look on the website, you've got kind of like, you talk about expansions. You've got kind of a couple of expansions planned. I mean, once you created the core game, was it very, very easy for you to create additional expansions and scenarios and additional characters?
Yeah. That whole Yu-Gi-Oh movement that I had with the numbers and then moving into the millions and stuff? Yeah. And then I realized that as I started developing the game, hey, trying to put all the nationalities in the game at the same time and cover every theater of war at the squad level is insane. It's not a tactical level, it's a squad level. It's individual men, right? So I was like, I don't know if I could pull that one off. So I had to really focus down and start smaller, and keep it simple, stupid, and just use that. So I whittled it down. So the initial game is going to launch with 8 divisions that are kind of scattered across 4 nationalities, and then the expansion, which would come out, which we're planning on, playtesting actually at Gen Con again this year. That would include 4 more nationalities, and then it would be a pretty complete game from the get-go. But it was too big, to bring them all in at the same time. So we whittled it down to something so you wouldn't be carrying around that or backing up the semi or calling in the helicopter to be like, okay, we got to bring in these extra, 4,500 soldiers, right? So I had to make the choice that, yes, it's important. Playability is important, yes, and accessibility is important, but we also need to be realistic. And so the realistic component of it is taking it down to a size that's more portable initially, yeah, and you can add to it.
And that's just shy of your 200 cards that you're looking at then.
Right. So there's 17 soldiers that come in the core game.
Right. Okay.
So because they're spread across divisions. So you could imagine if I had all of the nationalities at the same time that I was going to try to include, the soldier count would push way off, and it would be impossible to push out and get it out the door and have people really experience it. So I made a choice that we're going to have to at least have one expansion that's going to, introduce some of these other elements that are there. But the core game will stay the same. Yeah.
Was it, were you tempted when you were putting together the Kickstarter campaign to have the expansions as part of the project?
I was, but I realized also that I am not capable of superhero feats of amazing game design prowess, of designing everything quite so big all at once. Though all the numbers and the math is done and whatnot on the expansion and the soldier abilities, that kind of thing, and a lot of the artwork is completed. I just was not going to be able to get it all in one core element there. So I had to just kind of whittle down and keep it as it was. And then I of course went through the all-important litmus test in my family, which is if you can get my wife to play it, it's good. You're good. So she does not like war games. And so part of my goal was like, can I design something that my wife will play with me? This will be amazing. It worked. It's not my driving factor by any means, but it is our joke within the family. If my wife can play it, then we consider it good.
Do you ever go for the expert mode thing where you ask her to play a war game once you have woken her up at 2:30 in the morning to scribble down some ideas in a notebook?
Yeah,
have you not tried that? Have you not
I should try that tonight. Yeah, I'll get out like a little a big book and put a whole bunch of cards on it and then just wake her up and go, hey, can you try this round with me and see if this new mechanic works? Yeah, I think I'll be sleeping outside.
Yeah, you need some kind of protective equipment with that. It's like, why have you got the why are you wearing a full flak jacket? Oh, no reason. Here,
good.
You want to just try this round? What time is it? Have I slept in? No, you've got plenty of time before you have to go to work, honey.
But really focus on this right here. See this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does this random work for you? Kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's it been like? I mean, with you, this being your first campaign, is Kickstarter a daunting place for people who are launching campaigns for the first time, who in some ways could be launching their tabletop business for the first time? I mean, when you look on the likes of, when you look on the likes of the games that have been out in the last year, and then you're looking at the games that have already been out so far this year, when you're looking at it, you're thinking, can I pick a right time here to launch a game where I'm not going up against somebody else? You obviously have a restriction potentially on resources and things like that as well. Mm-hmm. Have you had to call in kind of favours from from colleagues, friends and things like that to kind of help you get the game up to a standard where you're like, yep, this can do it, we're happy to press the button on the campaign?
Yeah, I've definitely drawn on everyone around me to help play test and get things rolling and give a bunch of feedback. And it's a challenge to get feedback when somebody says, hey, I don't want to say sucks, but yeah. And you're like, okay, got it. Yeah, you have to develop a little bit of a thick skin when it comes to that. But the challenge, I think, on Kickstarter is when you're launching a company, which is what we're doing at the same time. So we're really, longevity is key for us. We're not just putting out one game and then moving on. We really want to be making this a lifestyle. And this is what we consider our flagship game. It's not our game, it's our flagship game as we move forward. So there's a challenge to make sure that people see your vision when you put it out, and that they can understand what's there, and they also understand that there's a certain finality to what is being shown to them, that this project will actually happen. You know, we're completely finished with layout. We're ready to go. We just need a little help with printing, that kind of thing. So you have to tell the community that, and just be yourself. And I think that's a challenge to do. But that's also where Kickstarter, I think, maybe has the edge over retail, is you have to say everything on your box in retail, whereas in Kickstarter you can use a video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've already got the kind of the video together. The artwork on it is decent. It's it's clean. It's not. It reminds me of kind of a comic book type style.
Mm-hmm.
And the danger with when you're doing a war game is you seem to get kind of two extremes. Either you almost end up kind of being kind of cutesy, which I think can do a war game a disservice, because then it becomes quite cartoony, or you go to the other extreme of kind of ultra realism, so it almost looks like you're looking at kind of like photographs when you're playing it, and then it can end up looking like just stock photos that
Right.
you're playing on a card. I mean, was that a conscious decision that you made with the artwork to kind of go for a certain type of style when you were putting the game together?
Yeah, we knew from the get-go that we wanted to have an artist's hand on all of the characters, since the human element was key. That if you looked at Captain DiLorenzo and you could see in his eyes his life, you know, it was important to see that. And doing that with a stock photo, we couldn't do it. So it didn't play well with the overall, you know, design. So our goal was to kind of skirt the bounds. It is largely historically based, but there are some concessions that we make for gameplay to make it, you know, fun and enjoyable, that more people can pick it up than just people that are, you know, the grognard or whatnot, and they can enjoy the game for what it is. So the art style was designed to not only catch somebody's eye, but to look at that and say, oh yeah, if I look at, you know, Private Wagner here, he looks really intense, and, you know, I want to know more about this guy. And now I can see that he has a problem. He's all thumbs, so he can't repair his weapon to save his soul. So he's in trouble if things like that happen, right? So that character had to be there, and that's why when we chose the art style, which you can see a whole bunch on the Kickstarter, and we'll be updating the website alongside that, so you actually get to see everything that's there. We just kind of had a placeholder in, but you get the idea of the characters that are there, and that really plays out on the, you know, paper in front of you. And I think that's important element for connection for the player. And you don't want those guys to perish. You want to make sure that they can last from campaign to campaign. And if you're not sold on them as a soldier for their background or what they look like, or you can't identify with them, then you're back to square one, where you're pushing your cardboard chits in, and it doesn't matter if they die, and you try to take your objective. So that's why we chose the art style that we did, where we kind of took a little bit of historical elements, but we also have this character-driven element that's pushed in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Also, with you learning about Kickstarter, did you have to take a crash course in things like logistics and manufacturing and
Yes.
all those types of things as well.
Yeah, I wish you could take a course in it. I took some courses at some of the cons around where you met with game designers, and they give you some great backgrounds on how to start. But there are things that you learn through the process that just come and sideswipe you, and you're like, okay, right. I totally didn't think about the fact that if we ship worldwide, and how are we going to pull that one off if we have to ship out of our house? All of these other components. So then there are people that can help you, and you can find other companies that will help you, with shipping and how do you contact them, and working with the manufacturers and what was tough, and how do you even find manufacturers that do this, and get started. But we eventually got through that slog, and it's a huge learning curve, but we think we finally got our handle on it. So yeah.
Okay. If you're going to be stepping in and you're wanting to be part of the theater of war, how much is it going to cost you to kind of jump in?
The base core game is $40, so that gets you all of the 350 cards. There is a stretch goal, or not a stretch goal, a tier that's in there where we're going to take a few individuals that really want to immortalize themselves in a game, and we'll take their names so they can put their name in the game and where they're from, and that'll go on their dog tag, and they can be part of the game itself. So that's quite exciting. We're excited about that, and to see where that will head. Kind of fun, but that's kind of what we did. We want to keep it simple as well. We don't want to have so many different tiers. Basically, it's you can get the game, you can get 2 copies, so a game for you and your friend, and then you can get your name in the game, and then get all the stretch goals that are there, of course.
Okay. And are you shipping? Are you pricing the shipping during the campaign, or are you going to be adding on the shipping at a later date?
If the shipping goes at a later date.
Okay.
But I think we have the costs already fixed with the companies that we're working with for shipping, so that the backer will know right away, how much it will be.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. It sounds interesting. I like a card game. I'm a big Ashes, Rise of the Phoenix Born guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's stunning as far as I'm concerned, and I enjoy it more than I've ever enjoyed Magic, which I don't like. But this sounds like it's. If you're in any doubt, check out the website, check out the videos. We'll be making sure that we put links out there so people can find you. Where's the best place for people to find you on the kind of the internet webs, Mr. Johnstone?
Oh, well, you can definitely go to the website, which, do you want me to say that here?
Yeah.
Okay. You can go to our website, which is netherhavyn.com, and it's spelled with a Y in there, so it's netherhavyn.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or, of course, we have Netherhavyn Gameworks on Twitter and Facebook as well. So everything is going across all of our social media as we push forward.
Cool. And as I say, we will take the links, and when we get the links for the Kickstarter, we shall make sure that we add it into the show notes so that we have kind of notes to show. Thank you very much for coming on, Price.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It has. It has been a lot of fun. And I wish you best of luck with the campaign, which is going to be on, just to Americanize it, it's going to be February 27th.
Right.
That's what we're going to say. End of the month.
The end of the month.
Get it now. Do it. Awful. Absolutely awful. Gonna have to edit that out. That's rubbish. What's your daddy's name and what does he do?
Listen to me now, pay attention later. Exactly.
I'm going to put you through the door. And so on and so forth. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and goodness knows, bless you if you do, we exist all over Tinternets as well. So you can find us on Twitter, which is We're Not Wizards, which we hang out far too much. You can find us on Facebook, which we don't hang out as much, but we still do hang out a little bit. You can find us on YouTube, which is We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. If you search for that, or if you just search for We're Not Wizards, you'll find it that way as well. You can find us on Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and the lovely Podknife and all these other kind of podcatch-y type places. You can find us on Instagram, which is We're Not Wizards. If you want to buy a t-shirt, shameless plug, you can get it if you search We're Not Wizards on Redbubble, of all places. Links are in the show notes. If you like what you've heard tonight, then please tell somebody else who's maybe interested in the hobby, or just interested in hearing a Scottish person trying to sound like he knows what he's talking about. If you like us even more, then please consider going to Apple Podcasts and subscribing, because that helps the show immensely, and we genuinely are grateful for every single person who's joined us over the last couple of years now. If you like us even more and you'd like to leave us a rating or a review, that would be even better. As we say, if you are going to be leaving a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars, because it just makes us big-headed. And don't give us 1 star, because I just look ugly when I cry. But leave us something in the middle, like 5 stars, because it's kind of, it's in the middle. It's average, and we are decidedly average. But the gentleman who's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic Mr. Price Johnston. So thank you again for coming on, good sir. I wish you all the best for Netherhavyn games, and of course all the best for Of War and Men, which seems to be, worthwhile having a look.
Excellent.
There's only a couple of more things left to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Price?
Negative.
Absolutely not, good son. We are fighting the Jerry Bosch, and we will send him home crying. We will never surrender.
That was good.
We will never surrender. I taught Gary Oldman all he knows. Except the dodgy stuff. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Price. Say goodbye, Price.
Goodbye, Price.
Every single time without fail. You people, do you share the same joke? Do you have a brief beforehand? Every single time without fail. And the second thing is this a goodbye from me. So remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. And come the end of the month, roll on over to Kickstarter. Go to the searchy, addressy thing and search for Of War and Men. And check out the project when it is live. As I say, we will also have the Kickstarter link when it is live as well, so you can check it out too. And keep an eye on everything else that Netherhavyn Games are going to be doing. They are young, they are very, very keen, and they are here to make you entertained in the theatre of war. And but until the next time, goodbye. Say goodbye, Price.
Goodbye.
Just freedom.
Freedom. Right.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that.
Yeah. It was my best Mel Gibson. It's all I got.
And next week, join us for cultural appropriation. Okay, bye.